Hi there. Today, we follow the Chilean miners, 33 men who went to work under the Atacama Desert and suddenly found themselves trapped far below the surface. Before the world watched the rescue on television, there was only dust, darkness, limited food, and a question no one could answer quickly. How do people stay alive, organized, and human when help is still only a hope? Chapter 1. The Day the Mountain Closed. The San Jose mine was not a place built for comfort. It was hot, dry, narrow, and dangerous, like many mines where people work because families need income and communities depend on difficult labor. On August 5, 2010, the miners were deep underground when the mountain shifted. A huge collapse blocked the main tunnel. In a few seconds, an ordinary workday became a crisis. Imagine the sound first. Not a small crack, not a simple warning, but the heavy roar of rock moving where rock should never move. Dust filled the air. Lights changed. Men looked at one another and understood that the path back was gone. They were alive, but being alive was only the first problem. The refuge area inside the mine had supplies, but not enough for a long wait. The miners did not know if people above knew exactly where they were. They did not know if rescuers could reach them. They did not know if the unstable mountain would move again. Fear was not a dramatic idea. It was in the heat, in the darkness, and in every breath. This is a powerful moment to notice simple crisis language inside a living scene. Trapped, blocked, collapsed, limited, and alive. These words are not complicated, but in the right story they carry great weight. The miners were not heroes posing for cameras. They were workers inside a mountain, trying to understand what had just happened, while every practical choice carried emotional pressure. The first hours mattered because the mind looks for a story. If the story becomes only disaster, people lose strength. If the story becomes survival, even small actions begin to feel possible. Chapter 2. 33 people, one small space. When a group is trapped, the first enemy is not always hunger. Sometimes the first enemy is panic. Panic can turn small problems into large ones. It can make people speak too fast, move without thinking, and use energy they cannot replace. The miners needed order before they needed a miracle. They counted supplies. They shared food in very small portions. They organized space. They created routines. These decisions sound practical, but they were also emotional. A routine tells the mind, we are still here. A schedule tells the group, this day has shape. A shared rule tells everyone, no one is more important than the rest. Leadership did not mean giving speeches. It meant helping the group stay together when each person could have fallen into private fear. Some men knew the mine well. Some were older. Some were younger. Each person carried a family, a memory, a worry, and a different level of hope. Underground, those private lives had to become one community. The miners were also fighting time. Food was limited. Water was difficult. The heat was exhausting. The air was heavy. In a normal room, discomfort can be annoying. In a trapped mine, discomfort becomes a clock. Every hour asks the same question. Can you keep your mind steady for one more hour? The men had to manage food, space, energy, and emotion with the seriousness of people who understood that waste could become dangerous. A careless argument could waste strength. A careless movement could waste water. A careless rumor could waste hope. Underground, discipline was not a personality trait. It was a shared tool for staying alive. Chapter 3. Families above, silence below. Above the mine, families waited. Waiting can look passive from the outside, but it is one of the hardest human actions. A mother, a wife, a child, or a brother does not simply stand still. They imagine possibilities. They listen for news. They fear rumors. They study the faces of officials, hoping to read truth before words arrive. The camp above the mine became a place of anxiety and love. People prayed, argued, cried, and refused to leave. Their presence mattered because it told rescuers that the trapped men were not numbers. They were fathers, sons, husbands, friends, and neighbors. Every technical decision had a human name attached to it. At first, there was no confirmed contact. Rescuers drilled down, trying to find the refuge area. But drilling into the earth is not like pointing at a location on a map. The underground world is complex. A small error can miss the target. Rock, depth, angle, and equipment all matter. The rescue was not only emotional. It was engineering under pressure. This part of the story teaches a useful English contrast: silence below, noise above. Below, the miners had to manage fear without news. Above, families had too much noise and not enough certainty. Both groups were suffering in different ways, connected by love, but separated by rock. The families above also created pressure that was useful. Their waiting told institutions, reporters, and rescue teams that the men had names and histories. They made absence visible. They transformed a remote industrial accident into a human emergency that could not be quietly forgotten. Chapter 4: The Note That Changed Everything. After many attempts, a drill finally reached the trapped miners. The rescuers pulled it back and found a message attached. The note said that all 33 men were alive in the refuge. Those words changed the story. The world moved from fearing a tragedy to hoping for a rescue. But hope did not mean the crisis was over. In some ways, hope made the mission more urgent. Now everyone knew the men were alive. Now everyone knew they had to be kept alive. Food, water, medicine, communication, and emotional support had to travel through narrow boreholes. The rescue became a bridge made of small openings. For the miners, contact with the surface brought relief and new pressure. They could speak to loved ones. They could receive supplies. They could hear that the world had not forgotten them. But they also learned that rescue might take a long time. Imagine hearing good news and difficult news in the same breath. We found you, but we cannot lift you out yet. That emotional mixture is one reason the story remains powerful. It is not a simple rescue scene where help arrives immediately. It is a long test of patience. The miners had to survive not only before they were found, but after they were found, while the world watched and engineers worked. Hope can be heavy when it arrives with a calendar. It asks people to believe, but also to wait. That kind of waiting can be exhausting because the mind keeps running ahead to the rescue before the body can follow. Chapter 5: Building a Plan Through Rock. Rescuers needed a plan that could reach deep underground and bring each man up safely. Different drilling strategies were prepared. Engineers, miners, officials, medical teams, and international experts became part of the effort. This was not one person saving the day. It was a system learning how to solve a problem that did not allow easy mistakes. The rescue capsule became a symbol, but the capsule was only the visible part. Behind it were calculations, tests, drilling machines, safety checks, and constant decisions. A narrow tunnel had to be created. It had to be strong enough, straight enough, and safe enough. Every meter mattered. Meanwhile, the miners had to prepare their bodies and minds. They were not simply waiting like passengers at a station. They exercised when they could. They followed medical advice. They sent messages. They supported one another. Survival became a daily discipline, not a single brave moment. This is where the story becomes useful for learning English and for life. Words like patience, coordination, discipline, and teamwork can feel abstract. In this mine, they became practical tools. Patience meant not giving up when the drill was still far away. Coordination meant many teams working without ego. Discipline meant doing small things correctly when everyone was tired. Above ground, the rescue teams also needed emotional discipline. They had to speak carefully, test carefully, and avoid promising what the mountain might not allow. In a crisis, confidence is useful only when it stays connected to reality. False certainty can hurt people. Honest progress, even slow progress, gives people something stronger. Chapter 6. Life Underground, While the World Watched. The miners were underground for 69 days. That number is easy to say and hard to feel. 69 days means waking up again and again in the same trapped world. It means missing sunlight, fresh air, normal meals, privacy, and the simple freedom to walk outside. It means hope must be renewed many times. The world watched the story, but the miners had to live it. Cameras and headlines can make events feel fast. Real endurance is slow. It is made of repeated hours. It is made of ordinary actions performed under extraordinary pressure. Drink water. Save strength. Speak kindly. Follow the plan. Wait for the next update. There was also emotional danger. A trapped group can break apart if resentment grows. People can become angry, silent, hopeless, or suspicious. The miners needed to protect the group atmosphere. They needed to respect differences and keep a shared purpose. The goal was not only to survive as individuals, the goal was to come out together. This is the quiet lesson of the episode. Human beings often imagine courage as a loud action. Here, courage was quieter. It was waking up underground and choosing cooperation again. It was admitting fear without letting fear become the leader. It was believing in the rescue while still doing the work of survival. The men also had to protect identity. They were not only trapped bodies waiting for a machine. They were people with humor, habits, opinions, memories, and pride. Keeping those parts alive mattered. A person who can still speak, joke, remember, and care is not only surviving physically, he is defending his humanity. Chapter 7. The Long Ride Up. When the escape tunnel was ready, the rescue entered its most visible stage. The capsule would carry each miner up one by one. The world saw the images, the narrow opening, the waiting families, the rescue teams, the cameras, and the faces of people who could barely believe the moment had arrived. But even success had risk. Each trip had to work. The capsule had to move through the tunnel safely. The miners had to enter it alone after weeks underground. For a person already under stress, a narrow capsule can feel like another test. The final path to freedom was not wide and easy. It was small, mechanical, and slow. One by one, the men came up. Each arrival carried a different emotion. Some smiled. Some prayed. Some hugged family members. Some looked stunned by light, air, and noise. Above ground, the rescue became a celebration. But behind every celebration was the memory of what could have happened. The phrase "one by one" is simple English, but here it has power. One by one means no one is forgotten. One by one means patience, until the last person is safe. One by one means the group is not complete until everyone returns. The rescue also showed the strange relationship between private emotion and public attention. A family hug is intimate, but in this case, the world saw it. The cameras made the moment global, yet the meaning stayed personal. Each miner came back to the surface, but also back to a life that would never feel exactly the same. Chapter 8. What the Rescue Still Teaches. The Chilean miners' rescue is remembered because it combined fear, science, discipline, family, and hope. It was not a perfect story, without stress or mistakes. Real human events are never that clean. But it showed what can happen when people refuse to treat a hard problem as impossible too soon. For students of English, this story gives strong words in context: collapse, refuge, supplies, borehole, capsule, rescue, endurance, and hope. But vocabulary is only the surface. The deeper lesson is emotional. Language helps us name what people carry during a crisis. It helps us understand fear without turning it into spectacle. The miners went down as workers and came up as survivors known around the world. The families waited with a kind of courage that did not always appear in technical reports. The rescuers turned pressure into method, and the world was reminded that sometimes the greatest victories are not loud. Sometimes they are patient, coordinated, and deeply human. There is also a quieter question after the rescue. What happens when the cameras leave? The men returned to daylight, but they also carried the memory of darkness. Their families received them back, but the waiting had changed them too. A rescue can end the physical emergency and still leave emotional echoes. That truth makes the story more human, not less inspiring. Survival is not a clean line between fear and celebration. It is a bridge from one life into another, built step by step with patience, memory, and care from everyone around them. So when you hear this story, do not remember only the final rescue. Remember the first dark hours, the rationed food, the organized routines, the families above, the engineers drilling, and the long discipline of waiting. Keep listening, keep practicing, and keep building the kind of English that helps you understand real human courage. Stories like this are not only about danger, they are about the choices people make when danger lasts longer than expected. They remind us that hope is not a feeling that appears once and solves everything. Hope is something people organize, protect, and practice together, even when the path ahead remains painfully slow.